Hello, everybody. It is Monday, August 11th, 2025. And I would like to invite all of you to, I'd like to invite all of you to say hello in the chat so that I know that you're here, number one. And 1 second while I get the captions up. There we are. I see that some of you have. Hello, Marie. Hello, Jackie, Evelyn, Lori. It's nice to see you all. I noticed last time during the live stream that because you all gave it a like, it seemed to distribute it throughout the YouTube algorithm. So give it a like. And that way, of course, more people can find this. More people will be given an opportunity or just given access. They'll know that this exists. Hey, Carrie. Hello, Clint. Nice to see that you're both here. Oh, boy.
You are synced.
Oh, thank you. And from what I hear, the audio is synced, which is very good news. All right. So this is the Finding Ground YouTube channel here, and we talk about the practice of meditation. Most of you surely know that. That's not news at all. But it is probably a good thing for me to announce the beginning of any live stream. There's one other thing that I wanted to say today. This isn't necessary for those of you who know me and have trained in meditation at our retreats. But in Finding Ground, we really have our eyes open. We are paying attention to what's going on in the world. We're reading the news, and we get it. We see the condition of things. We wouldn't want anyone to think that you can meditate away the world's problems. That doesn't work. It's never worked, and it never will work. That's not what meditation does. When we're scared, when we see things happening that are out of our control, meditation is a good thing for us to do, but it's a good thing to do anyway. Meditation doesn't make those problems go away. It makes us sane in a world that needs people to be sane. So when things aren't going well, the best thing that we can do is to put ourselves in a position to be well ourselves. Then we can be a resource for others. Meditation changes us from within. Confusion and suffering, although it affects society, it isn't a societal problem. It's an individual problem. When individuals solve their own confusion and suffering, they can come together with other individuals who've done the same and present kind of a force, kind of a bank of resourceful sanity for others. But we can't solve society's problems if we haven't solved our own problems. Some people might think that sounds selfish. And if that's the case, I would just invite you to think through that. Think through the logic of that. What really makes sense to do? Is it possible to solve the problems of the world from where you are right now? If it is, please do so. But if it isn't, you're not powerless. You're simply powerless to solve problems that are out of your control. In meditation, we look at the problems that are within our control, and we solve them. And it's something that can be done. So, tonight we're going to talk about how meditation helps and why meditation helps. Meditation is a remarkable, pardon me here, I feel that I'm just a little too bright. I would like to see a little more contrast like that. That looks a little bit better to me. You know, I have to look at myself too when we're doing these things. So I want to look presentable. And I think that looks a good, maybe a little saturation. How about that? Does that look better? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. So we're going to talk about how and why meditation works. Meditation is a human activity that's been shared among people quite openly in a very generous and open-handed way for thousands of years. And the tradition itself has changed. The tradition has moved from one culture to another, and it is adapted. It looks much different in Japan than it does in Bhutan, for example. It looks much different in Sri Lanka than it does in Tibet. But when you really get down to it, these various traditions, well, they're practicing something very in line with a goal that they share. And that goal is to free ourselves from suffering and confusion. So,
you're out of sync.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How bad?
Like 2 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to try something here. I've heard that I'm out of sync, so we're going to see. I don't know if that helped. I hate being out of sync. It's frustrating, but I can fix it in post. I think that it has to do with all of this software that we have to use. Anyway, I apologize. Maybe just don't look at my lips, look at my forehead if I'm out of sync. I could put something on my head if that would help, but I don't have anything here.
Fixed.
Oh, good. Apparently it's fixed. So here at Finding Ground headquarters, we have a lot of experience helping people who are looking to make meditation a part of their life understand what it even is. And one of the challenges with meditation is, thank you, Lori, thank you, is that there is a lot of not intentional, but nevertheless, a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about it. That only makes sense because if there was ever a culture on the face of the earth that was not in sync or aligned or a likely candidate for meditation training, it would be us. Our outlook, our training, and our socialization take us in the direction that meditation seeks to retrieve us from. But we are so far in that direction of self-loathing and materialism and confusion, distraction, heightened emotionality, desperation and despair. Meditation can help, but we have to understand where we actually are so that we don't expect meditation to solve something in one weekend, which is probably going to take a few years for us. And that's just how it is. There's nothing faster than meditation. There's nothing that is a shortcut to this. One thing that you will just see as you explore meditation, particularly online, is there, just like with anything, right? There's always someone offering a faster way or a shortcut or a tip. Well, that's what meditation was 2,500 years ago. Meditation was the fast way to remove oneself from suffering and confusion. And it's remarkably fast. The earliest meditation teachings that we have are remarkable. They are as fast, really, as any of us could handle. But over the centuries, deeper styles of meditation developed, which are much faster even than those. Those would be the awareness style teachings, particularly those presented by Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Those are such a shortcut, such a fast path, that it's almost obscene or irrational to ask for something faster. They are faster than we are capable of using. So the real key is not that we need a method that is faster. We need to position ourselves to be able to use any method at all, whether it's slow, medium, fast, or very fast. We are the limiting factor always in meditation, not the style of meditation that we're using. Because unless you're doing some kind of new age gobbledygook, which isn't a path at all, if you're doing any authentic style of meditation with a real lineage, you're doing something that's going to work, and it's going to work quickly once you're ready. So that's why we're talking about this tonight, how meditation works and why it works that way. So let me just, I'm having fun with my slides tonight. I didn't do a great job in setting myself up so that I can see what the slides are. So I'm going to hit buttons over here and hope that the slide comes up. And so here goes. Wish me luck. Here's the path of meditation, okay? The path of meditation. It worked. This is what happens to us once we decide that we're going to meditate. It looks like this. This is on the left side of the screen, the beginning. This is where we are before we are meditators. We're going to go into this a little bit more in a minute. And then at the far right of the screen, this is the result. This is the real result of meditation. Now, some of you are aware of what the real result of meditation is said to be. You understand this idea of bodhi, or freedom from suffering, or the recognition of reality, enlightenment, awakening. You're aware of that. But a lot of people aren't. A lot of people, they think that any of this is the same as anything else, or they think that by just beginning meditation, somehow they're experiencing the result right away. Sometimes that's just because they're very new to this and they haven't, learned very much. But sometimes it's because that's what they've been told. And that's too bad, because that is just simply not how it is. The goal of the path is awakening. That's the goal of the path. We do the path over here where I am, right below me. When we're here, we enter the path. The path, same thing. The path starts with our ordinary situation, which we're going to talk about, and then over time it begins to even out our experience. That's the early result, but it's not the goal. It's not the goal. The goal is inaccessible until this process has happened. This process has happened. So how does meditation work? Well, it works in two stages. Meditation has two forms, and that's how it works. The first form of meditation is actually called meditation. We're trying to translate all of these Sanskrit and Tibetan words into English, and it's a chore because we have to double up words, because we don't have we are not a culture that meditates. We don't know anything about this stuff. We have a start with psychology, which is a good start. I mean, it definitely helps us, but meditation is just, I mean, really light years beyond anything that we've come up with. Doesn't mean that we can't do it. We can do it just as well as anyone else. It just means that we don't have the background, we don't have the language, we don't have the schema in our minds of even understanding what meditation is. So it just means it takes a little bit of time to get that. If any Tibetan or any Indian or any Japanese or anyone anywhere can meditate and attain the goal, then so can we. We're at a temporary disadvantage because we're born into a culture which has a lot going for it, but it doesn't have this going for it. So we don't really get this stuff, and we have to learn it. So meditation begins with meditation. Meditation is this part. This is meditation. Meditation looks like this. Non-meditation is what we do once our meditation has given us the results of meditation. So, okay. Meditation does not produce awakening. Non-meditation produces awakening. Awakening happens at the end, or it happens on the journey of non-meditation. I think I have these slides. I think they're good. So let's see. There we are. So this chart right here, this little thing right here, I've broken these things down into 4 sections, and they look like this. You can see step 1 is we are absolutely crazy. Our mind is going up and down and up and down. And what that really means is when the world goes up or the world goes down, the world hands us something painful, we go down. The world hands us something pleasant, we go up. Our mind goes up. Our mind goes down. And before meditation, when the mind goes up, we go up. When the mind goes down, we go down. And now the important thing about that is that means that we have no control. When we're identified with something that goes up and goes down, then we go up and we go down. If you're in a car and it crashes, you are in the car when it crashes. If you are on the side of the road looking at a car that crashes, you're not in that crash. So we have to understand that we are in a situation that is very unhealthy. This is our experience. This is a healthy mind. A healthy mind does, it has its ups and downs. It has some real downs, like when we lose someone we love, or we break a bone, or whatever it is, and then it has some real ups when we find a real friend, or when something good happens. It does have some ups, and those ups do kind of dislodge us, and those downs kind of, they disrupt our life. But that's okay, because for the most part, we're like this. That's healthy. Now, this is possible without meditation. Healthy doesn't need meditation. These days, that might not be true. These days, because we're here, we have to do something. We have to do something to turn this into this. Because when you're here, you can't do anything properly. You can't see, you can't understand. Your life has no joy. You have no creativity. You have nothing but anxiety and despair and darkness. The joy has left. The life has left. That's not good. You can't attain anything worth attaining when your mind is like this. You certainly cannot attain enlightenment or awakening. Can't do it. So we have to understand that there's a basic healthy state of mind and a very unhealthy state of mind. The basic health is where we need to be in order to engage in the type of meditation which will liberate us from suffering. Enlightenment is not possible when we're here. Enlightenment is possible when we're here, but it's possible because we're going to take it from crazy to basically healthy, and then too many slides. I know, too many slides. And then, as you can see right below me right now, this line becomes even. That's called samadhi. That's when our meditation has kicked in and evened out our mind, and we are able to let go of all meditative effort and relax, which is called non-meditation. That is when we are going to wake up. Now, okay, God, that was a lot for me to try to put that together with these tiny little screens here. I'm going to do another live stream about non-meditation and awakening. I think it's really worth understanding what awakening is. It's really important to understand that because there's a spectrum of awakening. And there really is a spectrum of awakening. And what that means is there's a full awakening called Buddhahood. That's what Buddhists call it. We just call it full awakening. And that happens. There are people who clearly, as far as we can tell, they have done that. They're sort of the same. But we don't have to get there right away. I mean, there are stages of the path which deserve to be called awakening that are quite a ways below that. And that's what our goal is. Our goal ultimately, of course, would be to be fully awake. But right now, it's like a triage. Right now, we are here. We just want to get here so that we can eventually become awake. And awake doesn't need to be complete, full Buddhahood, like Siddhartha Gautama or Padmasambhava or Milarepa or anyone like that. That's an extraordinary accomplishment. And by the way, those accomplishments come from non-meditation, not from meditation. Meditation doesn't produce those higher outcomes. Non-meditation does. Okay. God, I got to get rid of these. We're going to go back here. Meditation and non-meditation. These are the two components of a path that liberates us from suffering. It's tempting to want to just learn about non-meditation because you hear somebody say, and it's not just me saying this, the only reason I'm saying this is that every legitimate teacher I've ever trained with says this. This is just how it is. Non-meditation is where enlightenment happens. So shouldn't you start non-meditation now? Well, sure. Can you? That's the question. And if you're here, the answer is no. So we need to get here. And the way we get there is through meditation. Meditation operates so this would be the how section. Meditation operates by understanding what we are and adjusting the components that need to be adjusted so that this part up here, this shrinks and evens out. Meditation evens this out. So if you just look at this, you see these red points on the up and red points on the down. Those are the extremes of positive and negative experience. Some fluctuation is normal because the world keeps changing and we're always living in response to a changing world. Yes, it's possible that we can rest in the unchanging element of what we are, but that's non-meditation. And that, for most of us, is just out of our reach if this is our situation. And if you're watching the news, this is probably your situation. So you need to understand that this is not a death sentence. This is just the way you start. And the way you start is through meditation, not through non-meditation. Non-meditation, now I'm going to pause there. If you're really just starting the path and you enter into a full tradition, you're going to learn both meditation and non-meditation. All the good traditions give you glimpses of non-meditation early on in the path so that you can experience that. But the bulk, 80% of what you're going to be doing is meditation. Maybe 20%, maybe 10% is going to be non-meditation. So, by the way, you are welcome to ask questions. Ask me to go back over something or to be clearer. That would help me a lot, actually. If there's something that you would like me to know or like me to do, just please write that in the comments. Meditation works with the mind and the body, primarily the mind. So we have our physical being, which is our body with our sense perceptions. We have our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, and our body. That's how we experience the physical world. We also have our mind, which is the part of us which knows what we are experiencing in the physical world. The body itself doesn't experience, like this is a very cold glass here. The body touches the cold, and the cold registers through my sensory apparatus here, and then it sends that signal to my brain, which is also my body, and my mind registers this. Body collects information and takes it back into the mind. If there were no mind, my body would be a corpse. And if you could touch it with a cold glass, you could touch it with a burning rod, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't register. The mind is closer to what we are, in a sense, than the body. The mind is something that we can develop so that we can access the part of us which is free from both the body and the mind. Because all of the confusion, all of the struggle in our experience exists in the body and the mind. Think about it. Where else would it? Okay, enough of that. Where else would our suffering be? It's not all in the body, because if I'm feeling sad or afraid and it hasn't begun to come in to my body, well, then that's not my body. That's my mind. That's what we call it in meditation. We call that area, the non-physical component of what we are, the mind. The mind can suffer, and the body can suffer. Mind and the body can suffer. Mind and body cannot escape a changing world. Our bodies and our minds have to live in this world. And at some point, our body is going to break down and no more live in this world. And that's where the meditation teachings have some kind of trippy stuff to tell us. They're going to tell us, your body's going to die, but your mind doesn't die. It continues on endlessly, forever. You don't retain your memories of previous existences, even though a lot of us, we've probably wondered, am I going to be able to remember what I was? Almost certainly not, because that was registered in your brain and your body of whatever existence that would have been. Now, I'll just say, of course, I'm a practicing Buddhist, and I've operated with this outlook for most of my life at this point, but This isn't easy stuff for anyone who wasn't raised with it, including me. I wasn't raised with this. So if the idea of past and future lives is troubling or uncomfortable, of course it is. It's okay, though. You don't need to figure that stuff out right away. You may never need to interface with that element of it. For those of us who really want to understand this stuff, the farther you go into the deep meditation teachings, the more you see how they exist in a context of what a human life is, which is quite vast. It doesn't just involve one lifetime. Just like a city is not the one person you know in that city. It's all the people in that city. So we have to just understand that the meditation tradition is quite confident in its presentation. And some of it is going to be easy to understand, and some of it is going to be beyond anything we've ever thought of before. We just have to get used to that. It's deep. It's deep. So, let's just have an image here. You are in a rickety old car driving over a completely unimproved road, like a fire road or something. And you're going to be on this road for a long time, day after day. Maybe this is the road to work or whatever it is. And it's just throwing you out of whack every time you're on it. There's no suspension in your car. There's nothing but neck problems and shoulder problems and all of that stuff going on because you have to drive on this bumpy road. What are some solutions to this? Well, I think the obvious solution is you create a car that can suspend you over that. And that's kind of possible. It's probably expensive. You're going to have a car that's now able to cushion the road, and that's going to wear and tear on the car. So you're probably going to have to get that car replaced soon. Soon. I'm going through puberty, so my voice keeps cracking. And it's going to take everything we have to build a car that can really cushion that road, if that's our approach. Another approach is even out the road. Just improve the road. Make the road smoother. And then you don't really have to worry so much about the car. Meditation takes that second approach, but that's probably not what we think it does. We probably think that meditation straightens out the part of us that keeps going up and down, our mind, our thoughts, our emotions. There are types of meditation, very superficial types of meditation that do that. They actually work to change the content of our thoughts. When I say they're superficial, I'm not saying that they have no value, but they are superficial when you look at the whole system that's available to us. The mind and its thoughts and emotions and habits and reactivity is difficult to change because it is vulnerable to another element within us that we don't talk about in our culture, but once you begin to identify it and work with it, you see it is definitely real. And we don't even have a good word for this. We could call it the subtle nervous system. We could call it our chi. In Sanskrit or Indian culture, it's called prana. In Tibetan culture, it's called lung. This is the inner energetic network. The inner energetic network is like a stream of energy that is coursing through our physical being all over the place. And our mind rides on that stream. So this is something that is quite complex, and I'm certainly not a master of it. When you first hear about it, half the people just listen, and half the people get really excited and they want to learn more. They want to learn all about the inner energy system. But what's very interesting is that you don't need to. You don't need to study where the channels are and what patterns they follow. You just don't. It's not going to help you at all. It's just going to confuse you. What you do is you learn how to work with it. All you need to understand is that it's there and that it can be worked with, and then you learn how to work with it. When you work with the inner energetic body, you begin to even out the road that the mind is traveling on. So when your inner body, your inner winds are smooth and relaxed, your mind is smooth and relaxed. So this is how meditation works. It will somewhat pay attention to your thoughts, but not much, because your thoughts are not important at all. Your thoughts are 99% inaccurate. They're 99% exaggerations of what's going on. So what we're trying to do is turn the volume, because remember this? We're just trying to turn the volume so that this turns into this. And then you can see that we're going from an unhealthy state of mind to a basically healthy state of mind. And let's see, where is my... And the results of meditation are that healthy state of mind. The results of meditation, not non-meditation. The results of meditation are that we have a healthy state of mind. The results of non-meditation is that we give birth to wisdom, awakening, freedom from fear and confusion and suffering and all of that stuff. But we can't really do that if we don't have a steady, healthy state of mind. So remember, the way the path works is the path begins with us being crazy, and then it transforms it into a basic state of health, and then it completely transforms it into a steady state of experience that unfolds a recognition of truth, which changes us completely, which we'll talk about in another live stream. So no one's asking questions here, which I guess is good, or I think it is, but you're welcome to ask questions here. Just remember, I can't hear you, so you don't ask them, type them in. Meditation works when we have our eyes open to the reality of our life. We have to see the world that we are actually living in. We have to let go of wanting things to be some other way. Now, that's not the same thing as giving up hope for a better world for ourselves and others. That's just part of being a good person, right? We want suffering to come to an end. Granted, I mean, maybe not everybody does. Maybe most people don't even think about that. They just want to be safe, or they just want what they want. But that's not us. We're people who've connected to a deeper experience of life, and it's not really an option. It's how we're built. We are people who have a different karmic situation. We want something that most people don't want. We have 2 cats. One of our cats wants wet food. Doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't even matter if it's wet food, as long as it's wet and it's kind of food. She'll eat it. She just wants that. The other cat only wants particular wet food. They're both cats, but one of them will eat anything and one of them won't. And we're like that. Some of us are very sensitive to what's going on in the world. Some of us are not. Some of us are sensitive to what's going on in the world, and we're also sensitive to the dimension of experience that may be available to us. Those are people who are likely candidates for non-meditation. But in order to do that, they have to engage in meditation so they can get there. My concern, because what I do in my life is I talk to meditators, and I'll talk to people who think maybe they've just had a profound experience and they want to check it out. Maybe they want confirmation. And I listen to how people respond to their own meditation practice. And that's important. If you're a meditator, you really do need to talk about your practice with someone from time to time. It doesn't have to be constant, but you can't meditate without a community of meditators. You really do just, you really do end up in a type of isolation which doesn't move in any direction. So, Rodrigo, hello. Is meditation medication for mind? I think that's a good way to put it. It heals the mind. It heals the ups and downs and the confusion of the mind. It really does. Particularly the style of meditation which relies on relaxation rather than the style that involves concentration. Concentration is not a good thing for a mind that is in tremendous suffering. Concentration is a good thing, though, but it's not a good way to start if you're, up and down and up and down. Clinton, hello. Rodrigo, let me know if that answered your question or if I should circle back with you. Clint says, you said we can't change the world through meditation, only ourselves. I see where this is going. I'm devoted to the path and renunciation, but I struggle with how much info I should take in regarding current events, thoughts. Okay, it didn't go where I thought it was going to go. What a question, So we just got back. I'm even surprised I had time to shave before this. And I'm out of practice here. Out of practice being on camera. We just got back from spending 3 weeks where we spent a week with one of our teachers, Choki Nima, in Northern California in the Redwoods. No social media for me during that time. No news, nothing. And thank you, Rodrigo, for the confirmation. I took in no news. I did not do anything. For the first time in a long time, I didn't even take my phone with me when we were driving around Los Angeles. We went from Northern California down to LA to see family and see some friends and just be by the water, which is nice, and eat good, cheap food. Good, cheap food. You wouldn't think cheap in Los Angeles, but if you know how to look, it's cheaper than it is here in Denver, and it's much, much better. But anyway, I didn't take in any news, but I knew that there was stuff going on all the time. I knew that the world was in trouble. And when I came back, I got back here a couple days ago, and I thought, all right, let's just see. Obviously no bombs have gone off, but let's just see. And what do I find? Today it was a day for the history books. How could anybody be happy with whatever happened in Washington, D.C. today? Now, I don't want us to freak out about this. I want us to understand that we're living in a world which has always been like this, but this is the version of always like this that we all have to live through. When you understand that life does not solve the problem of suffering on its own, then you know not to expect a utopia. You know that something like a dream of a better world, of a democracy for the people, by the people, is a good idea. Well, if it sounds like a good idea to you, then maybe it has its merits. But no matter how successful we are at changing the world according to a benevolent and compassionate vision, impermanence is part of the equation, and impermanence always wins. Things that come together fall apart. So the best things that we can do will not be permanent. They won't be permanent. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do them, but we should be realistic. If you want something permanent that's good, you're not going to do it by trying to change the body and the mind into a permanent state. And the world, the society is composed of the physical world and the emotional, psychological world of its inhabitants. That can't be put into a permanent situation. That's an impermanent canvas. So we can move in the direction of changing it for a good outcome, but we can't solidify it. If we want actual, durable change, or I'm sorry, maybe change isn't the word, is it? Durable change. What am I thinking? If we want a durable result, we have to look for the part of us that can actually afford that. And that would be awareness, which we access through non-meditation, which we'll talk about that in another live stream. But I think, how much should you take in regarding current events? Well, I think that you should know if there is some, these are my opinions. I'm talking to Clinton and anyone who wants to know what my opinions are. I think that you should know about things where if you took action, you would make a difference for yourself and others, and you wouldn't completely destabilize your inner path. We can afford some activity in the world as practitioners. We can't easily afford to withdraw from the suffering of the world because, there are precedents for people who can in Tibet, in countries, in cultures where full-time dedicated practice is already built in. Full-time, I'm sorry, I just saw a comment and it threw me off there for a second, which is like an allegory or a metaphor for how life is. Some of my teachers lived in retreat. Well, they're not alive anymore, but they were in retreat for 20 or 30 years. And some of my teachers' teachers were in solitary retreat for 30 years. 30 years of solitary retreat, where at some point there would just be people from the village below who would save up some of their grain and yak butter, and once or twice a year the village would come together to accumulate enough food to keep the yogi up in the cave alive, because there's a cultural value there. If you're a part of a culture like that, then it is appropriate, if you have it in you to do that type of practice, it is appropriate, but that's pretty rare. Even doing a 3-year retreat, which is the basic level of being a yogi, a 3-year retreat sounds like a big deal to us. It is a big deal, but it's not a big deal when you look at the tradition. I have a good friend who's done 10 years of retreat. 10 years of retreat. And he's just a really sweet, wonderful, incredibly knowledgeable person, and he doesn't live in a retreat anymore. He works his butt off to help meditation programs. But when he was younger, he was a student of Tulku Urgyen, and Tulku Urgyen just said, go ahead and go and retreat. I'll set you up with a place. And he did it. And he didn't take in any information. That was back before he could have had easy access like the internet. That would have been probably in the 80s or 90s. But I think that you should be aware of what's going on. I also think that you should give yourself permission I have a hard time with this. So this is what I say, but maybe not what I do. You should give yourself permission to take a month or two and have no information. But you don't want to hide out. So let's just talk about this for a second with your all's permission. Most of the people that I work with and study under and train alongside and teach are people who are practicing what would be called the Mahayana Dharma or the Bodhisattva path, which is essentially, now if this isn't you, then this doesn't apply to you, and that's perfectly okay. But if you are of the Bodhisattva type, like I'm someone who's taken umpteen million times the Bodhisattva vow, so I want to attain full awakening so that I can be the type of resource that someone who attains full awakening can be. And that's like my goal. Now, if you were to look at my life, you would probably, oh shit, I'm out of sync. Sorry, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I don't know what to do. Hang on. I don't know if that worked. We'll see. Oh, come on. What's going on here? All right. Let me know. As I was saying, in sync or out of sync, the Bodhisattva aspiration is that you want to be a benefit to others. Now, this begins because you have enough meditative experience to understand that the notion of a personal self, the me that we're clinging to all the time, doesn't actually relate to anything real. There isn't one. There isn't one. Now, that's not a belief. That's an insight that happens in meditation. It's astonishing. But the thing that we cling to as a self, okay, Evelyn, nice to see you. Or nice to know that you're here. When you see that this idea of a me or of a self is not valid, and you've had enough time to process, this doesn't mean that you've actually achieved non-self and that now you're a stream enterer and all of that. Those are very deep experiences of confirming this. But even a basic understanding of non-self, you start to realize that living your life for your own goals in this life is pointless. And so what do you do with the rest of your life? Well, you look out and you realize, oh my God, people are burning up inside. People are so confused and suffering. And you ask, is there anything I could do? And if you could do something, well, you do it. You help them. But maybe you can't. Maybe the only thing you really can do is work on yourself. Well, you work on yourself with the goal that by working on yourself, you will begin to become a resource for others. And eventually, you'll become whatever a fully awakened person can be for other people. You will be that. Now, of course, the Buddhist tradition will say that is the ultimate way to benefit people. The capacity of a fully awakened person to benefit others is inconceivable. But we don't really have much of that in our culture, so I'm just trying to put it in very basic terms. Whatever that is, I'll be that way. So, Clinton, if you're still here, if I'm a bodhisattva, and I'm not an enlightened bodhisattva, so I'm on the path that will gradually uncover wisdom. I will become enlightened bit by bit on my path. I want to understand the world that beings are living in, that I'm in too, because I want to understand what are they struggling with. And there's only so much I can know. I can't know the complete details of someone's individual suffering, but I can understand that if a society is afraid, it's good for me to understand why. And, I was thinking today, it looks like, the way it looks when you read the news is that we are losing the freedoms that we had at such an alarming rate that pretty much the only freedom we're going to have going forward is the freedom to attain enlightenment. And that is only going to be a freedom if we know how to do that. And we can only know how to do that by acquiring that training while we still have the freedom to do so. So if any of you want to meditate, hop to it. Get the training you need. You can't take for granted that all that's available today is going to be available tomorrow. So it's time. So Clinton, I think that you should at least read the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times cover to cover. And I think that you should, keep abreast of all the podcasts. No, I'm just kidding. What do you think, Clinton? What is your approach? Now I'm testing to see if you're here. If you're not, buddy. And Rodrigo, maybe impermanence is also impermanent? Impermanence, is impermanence impermanent? Impermanence is a characteristic of the phenomenal world. So impermanence doesn't have the characteristic of impermanence. It is a characteristic of the phenomenal world. Impermanence is the real basis of experience that one has to have. They have to see it and cognize it, identify it, and learn to sustain it in order to go from this to, well, maybe I should say not even that. How about this? One is pre-impermanence, pre-seeing impermanence. Two is getting us in a position to see impermanence. Three is learning to see impermanence. And four is actually seeing impermanence to the point where one can let go of any effort to see it and just be in it. So you didn't really maybe want me to answer that. Okay, Clint. Clinton, what do you think? How much information do you think you need? What is healthy? What is a healthy level of information? What do other people think about that? I read the news. And then from time to time, I go on various places where people are venting their thoughts to see what people are saying. I look to see what people from Europe are saying about the U.S., what people from Europe are saying about Europe, because the U.K. is now experiencing a terrifying loss of freedom with age verification on the internet. I don't really know what that means, but I can see that people feel like, oh my God, they've lost a tremendous amount of freedom that they had just a month ago. And I don't know the details, but I want to know that stuff. I want to understand, especially if you're someone who shares the path with others, who guides others. And, after being on the path for some number of years, it is thoroughly appropriate to be a friend to others and to help them think through. Yes, I agree. It's very complicated and not solved with a subscription to the New York Times. But how else are you going to know what $1 million can get you in California, New York, and Idaho? And, and also, don't you want to know about when society people are married? No, just kidding. I read the New York Times, but I laugh at it a lot. Yes, I agree. It's very complicated, not solved with a subscription. Generally speaking, I think less is better, but sources also matter clearly. I think so too. I think it's important to know if there is something that you could do. And then when there are things happening that you can't do anything about, I think it's good to just know. Like a very good example of this to me is the way the Tibetans learned about the Chinese invasion that was coming. So the Tibetans in like 1950 started to understand that, oh my God, and for those of you who don't know, in 1959, the Chinese invaded Tibet and enacted the most horrific genocide, as horrific as any genocide. We don't hear much about it, but the Chinese came in and basically slaughtered the Tibetans and completely destroyed their culture. And so those who could escaped to India. And that happened in 1959. In 1950, word of mouth was getting to the places very inland that there were skirmishes going on between China and Tibet that were looking very dangerous, because there's no way the Tibetans could arm themselves against the superior power and numbers of the Chinese. So people were keeping abreast of that. They weren't saying, oh, that's all the world of suffering, we're just going to be in the cave. They weren't doing that. In fact, a lot of the deeply, deeply awake teachers were contemplating this and then giving advice. Like the Dalai Lama would give advice to people and say, it's time for you to just leave. This would be like 1955, 4 years before any of this happened. A lot of the people who were very much in touch with the world, they really had their finger on the pulse, decided it's time to leave while we still can. And so they left. And that's why we have these meditation teachings, because people like Tulku Urgyen and the Karmapa and the Dalai Lama, they risked their life and escaped because they were paying attention and they saw that there are things that they could do. Some of them saw what was coming, but decided, if I leave, who's going to be taking care of the ordinary people here? And so they stayed. One of the greatest teachers I know of, Adi Rinpoche, deliberated and deliberated and deliberated because he didn't want to abandon people. But then I think it was the Dalai Lama who told him, you've got to escape. And he tried, and he was captured, and he was put in prison for 20 years. And during that time, attained enlightenment. All right. Rodrigo, there is a theory that information is a fundamental part of the universe alongside space, time, energy, and consciousness. Yep. Yeah. If you want to say something about that theory, please include that. Wow. An hour has gone by. I don't know if we've gotten through how and why meditation works. I think I could have been a little more organized tonight. It's been a busy week. I just landed trying to get ready for this. And I guess what I really want to say is that with the prevalence of deep teachings available to us, it's very easy to think that we can start with enlightenment teachings today, that we can just leap into a non-dual experience and be free from suffering. But that's not true. We can use those teachings, but we're going to be using those teachings from here, not from here. Those teachings can gradually help us get to here, but they're not going to get us to some awakened state in a week. And I talk to people quite often who have interfaced with like the non-dual world on YouTube. And they think that just by questioning the I thought, like, who am I and where am I, that they're going to have some kind of enlightenment experience. And that is just dangerous because it's not going to happen. But you are going to have experiences that you're going to be tempted to think, I've attained something. It's crazy. It's okay, Rodrigo. Thank you. It's more about string theory and abstractions. In the end, it's really complicated math. And it has nothing to do with meditation, though. So just know that. Those theories are, they are what they are. Thank you for joining the live stream. Hope to see you again. So if you are starting out on meditation, anyone who's listening, it is very important to give yourself an opportunity to do it for real. You begin with meditation practice. You tame your mind. Then when your mind is tamed, you move into awareness practice and begin to let go of things that you shouldn't be holding on to begin with. But you have to learn to do that. There's a lot of learning that takes place in that. It's not something you're just going to be able to do in a steady enough way to get actual results. Sure, anyone can just drop and let go of whatever they're holding on to in their mind, but to do that in a continuous, steady way that is unbroken takes training. And that's what meditation begins. Meditation begins that training and then passes you into non-meditation. And that's where you really learn to do that. And this can be done. There are amazing teachings available, amazing communities, and we have one of those communities right here. That's what Finding Ground is all about. So everybody, if you're interested in doing a retreat, we're having one this coming weekend. If you go to our website, www.findinggroundmeditation.com, you can register at a reduced rate for a couple more days. If you do want to do this, you will have a Saturday and Sunday of full guidance. You will walk away with a full training in meditation and an introduction to non-meditation. This, I believe, will be our 21st retreat, and they just keep getting better and better. So you're all invited to that. I'm going to leave off here. I thank you all for joining this live stream. I'm starving, and it's time for me to eat. If I don't eat, I won't live. And if I don't live, I can't meditate. And if I can't meditate, I can't fulfill my bodhisattva vow. And then the world at some point won't have the Buddha that I could be if I just have dinner tonight. You know what I'm saying? So I look forward to seeing y'all next week. We'll see what kind of visuals I come up with for then, but thank you all for taking this time tonight, and see you soon.